for some Bengals news. At the Growler, we got you. Hot takes, interviews from your host, Paul Jr.
All right, welcome to the latest edition of the Growler. Paul Dehner Jr. here for you. And then on Monday, it is a great day to bring in our good friend and yours, Charlie Goldsmith. Charlie, what's up?
How you doing, Paul?
I'm doing good. Gray quarter zip Monday. As I'm glad you got the memo on that. We're both in the same boat. Look at us go. It almost looks like we might have it. Flag and anthem for you.
I don't know, but I will say that like the gray quarter zip is the BJ Hill of the the closage. You need them. Maybe not the highest upside, but there's always a spot for them.
Always a spot for me. You know what? It's just like when you need to plug somebody in, they gotta have them. It's not gonna get everybody talking. It's not spicy, but solid, rotational. That's what it's about. Love that. All right, here we go. We're gonna do some things today. One, I have some schedule thoughts I need to unload. Mock schedule, one of my favorite things to do. If they gave out Pulitzers for silly internet drivel, I would submit this. Okay, I put way too much time and effort into mock schedule. So I have some thoughts on schedule things, including going to a well that I just cannot stop going to over and over and over again. So I'll be doing that. And then we're going to talk rookies, though, today. We're going to do some rookie projections, some rookie thoughts. The brutal, just exhausting rookie minicamp happened this past weekend. I don't know how these guys do it. Some of them sprinted a couple times on the one day that they were in rookie minicamp practice. Bengals notably don't give much time or effort on the field in rookie minicamp. And so it's not exactly the most strenuous thing. In fact, the most newsy thing that came out of it was the two guys that weren't doing anything, I guess. And so we can talk, I suppose, a little bit about that. But we more want to get into the season, some of the projections that we see. And I know, Charlie, you've got some rookie projection takes.
I tried to have some fun. I will say, though, on rookie minicamp, the quote of the weekend was actually from Titans minicamp with Brian Callahan, who basically, Bengals crossover. I'm sure Zach would say the same thing. Callie said that theirs was more of an acclimation minicamp than a competition minicamp. And I feel like Callie had the good line to describe what the Bengals have going on.
Yeah. What's funny, that almost exact wording was used in a question to Zach Taylor right after that. The question was about acclimation versus evaluation. And I think Zach wanted to look at him with his head sideways, like, evaluation? Like, we aren't evaluating anything here. And if you just watch that, I don't even know what you would be evaluating if you were doing a rookie.
The highlight was the long snapper quote that Wagner was Zach's top rated long snapper. That was the highlight of rookie minicamp.
That's it. Right in front of us. We were all sitting in the front row of the seats watching, and right in front of us, there goes Darren William Wagner working, and all the video cameras came up. Here we go. Long snapper competition is here, baby. You can see it. Look at the way he moves after he snaps it. Look at the snap of the spiral. You heard it hit the holder's hands, and you're like, wow. Elite long snapping.
This is a projection show. You got any projections for Wagner this season?
I'm saving it, Charlie. I'm saving it. Okay. We're gonna save the good stuff. Don't worry. Plenty of time for that. Before we do that, I do want to let you guys know, of course, how we love our friends down at BetMGM, Nation Kitchen and Bar down at the Banks. We're gonna be doing our live shows down there all year again. Charlie, we're working on the cookie eating contest now, is what this has evolved into. Is you claimed 8. Now everybody, I'm hearing from Growl Pals who are like, we want to come and compete. They want to compete in a cookie eating contest. They do. That's it. That's what's all. It's competition season. Okay. And so just know that I think that could be something that's in the works. The cookies are so good. You've talked about them enough. The word is out. People want to come and see how many they can put down if they can compete with your 8. But we got all that happen. We got all our shows going on down there. But you should know BetMGM. Of course, we're hooking you up now if you want some free money. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code Growler and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and you sign up using the bonus code Growler. Then you deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. So just make sure you use the bonus code Growler when you sign up, okay? And don't forget, all right, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code Growler, and you can get $1,500. I mean, Jay had this the other day. We were talking this last time on Who They Like. He said, look, all you got to do is bet against the Rockies twice. Okay. If you bet against the Rockies twice, then you know that you'll win one of those two bets. And if you have the second one already coming to you, that's just free money on top of everything else. So just follow Jay's advice.
I have lots of Rockies thoughts, but that's for another podcast.
It's for another podcast. In fact, go listen to Power Stacks. New
we do
fresh
not talk
episode
about
out
the
today.
Rockies.
No, but you could if you wanted to. It'd be a little bit more on brand than here. There's no question about that.
Yes.
But make sure you're checking that out. Okay, let's take this second here, Charlie, and talk a little bit about the schedule. I have many schedule thoughts, but my main thought is going to be the same thought that I always have: is that the Bengals are paying attention to something. Last year, they, and really more me, took it on the chin and had 5 road primetime games. The truly worst thing that can happen on the schedule for a beat writer is the road primetime. Having to come back early the next day. It's just awful. That said, they are frustrated, as you should be, by the fact that they have had to play a lot of these AFC North road primetime games, which is not a winning proposition. It is an uphill slog, and people are like, oh my God, he's doing it again. That's right. I will never let this go.
I actually made that point before we started recording.
You did. You did. Until the numbers change, Charlie, I'm not going to stop bringing them up. When we talk about what matters in the schedule, not a whole lot outside of some trips that you can combine. And I'll get into those. But it's this for you on YouTube. Please watch, subscribe on YouTube. I have the numbers in front of you. Since Zach Taylor took over in 2019, this is the setup of AFC North divisional road primetime games. The Bengals have played in 7. The Ravens have played in 1. Steelers 5, Browns 3. AFC North team record in those situations, 3-13 straight up and 5-11 against the spread. This is 6 years of different teams, different situations, having to play this out. And this is what it looks like. And my point on this is the last 2 years, not only that, they've had to go to Baltimore and had to play in prime time on Thursday nights. It hasn't gone particularly well, by the way. But these primetime years, 3 straight years, the Bengals play in primetime in Baltimore. 3 straight years, they host the Ravens at 1:00 on a Sunday. It does make a difference. This shows that it does make a difference. So when you talk about like, hey, does that feel fair? I don't know. Fair or unfair, it goes, but the impact is not substantial. But you see it. It's at the very least in a league of winning in the margins. It's much more challenging to have to go do it in primetime. And so they're going to be looking on how many of these divisional primetime games and total road primetime games do they end up with.
No, this matters. This matters. What's interesting to me is I think the Browns and Steelers, unless they sign Aaron Rodgers, which they haven't, so I don't know that you can make that bad as a schedule maker at this stage of making the schedule. Like the Steelers and Browns aren't draws. Like that's my AFC North 2025 thought. Like they aren't draws in the way that they were. Those feel like Sunday at 1 games a lot more than they used to. The Ravens appeal has, in terms of Bengals Ravens, that rivalry, that stock has never been higher than it is now. But the Bengals Steelers and the Bengals Browns stock, when you look at what those teams have specifically at the quarterback position right now, no disrespect to Shedeur Sanders, I mean, that's not primetime material. And that makes me feel like this AFC North schedule will have a different composition from a Bengals perspective heading into 2025.
Yeah. I played this sliding doors. It's kind of like the intersection of sliding doors and conspiracy theory with Jay last week. And if you go back and if you say that primetime versus 1 o'clock Sunday in your home stadium is worth a point or two, right? And they would have switched the setup of the Bengals-Ravens games last year, where the Bengals host the primetime game and the Ravens host the 1 o'clock game, and they're worth a couple points, and both those games end up going the Bengals' directions. The Bengals win the North. They're the 3 seed. They're 11-6. They're on a 5-game winning streak entering the playoffs. How different is that? It's just this is not to say that anything but that truly disastrous defense is to blame, but like that's how thin the margins are, and were last year, and we're in this division. Like that little difference of a point or two can be the difference in changing the total way that everything's viewed.
It's funny, like when we do our film reaction review shows and stuff, we've gone back to that one near McKinley Jackson sack turned into drop pick by Cam. We've watched that play a million times on this show. What's funny is what that game was supposed to be was like the degree of difficulty of the Bengals going into Baltimore and stomping on them on a Thursday night road primetime AFC North with that added layer of difficulty, like you're saying. Like what they did through 2.9 quarters of that game was incredible. And then, we all know what happened next. But that goes to show what was almost the story of that game and what that could have done for the season.
I have a few potential fun trip combos, though, before we move on to rookie projections. Okay. I want to say I love the idea of Green Bay in week 4, at Green Bay in week 4, going to Lambeau. Here's the combo for you. All right. I'm setting up the weekend for the sports nut. Get up early on Friday, drive up, get to Chicago, go to Medina Country Club. President's Cup is happening. Go take in some President's Cup during the day. Get over to Milwaukee by that night. Reds, Brewers on Friday night, then Reds, Brewers on Saturday. Okay, then Sunday, you go up to do the 2.5-2-hour drive up to Green Bay. You get Bengals, Packers on that Sunday. What a trip. You're welcome. Okay, I'm giving gifts. All right, I love that one. Also, I like week 6 at Denver. Denver is my favorite, one of my favorite cities. Are you a Denver guy? Charlie? Love
there's
Denver.
there's a chocolate shop in Denver that knows me very well.
Oh yeah, you know what? I think I ate at this chocolate shop. It was right near the Sheraton that I stayed in when we were there last year. It's very nice, very nice. I love they know you. Will they walk in and will it be like Norm and Cheers? Like, will they Charlie?
You going with the Reese's cup today, or the chocolate pretzel, or the fudge? What are you feeling today?
At Denver, if you go week 6, you end up in week 6. American Beer Fest is that weekend. So if you like to have some delicious beer, it's pretty much as world renowned as beer fests get. One of the biggest ones that you can have. It's supposedly awesome. I've never been, but if it ends up in week 6 at Denver, great combo potential there for you. Let's see what else. I think the Bengals have interest in Black Friday, and they've always kind of liked the idea of playing on Black Friday. I'd be looking to see if they end up in that, or they feel due for holiday action, right? They feel due for Thanksgiving night or Christmas Day. Christmas is going to have a triple header this year. Black Friday's in play. They just feel due for one of those types of games. Also, everyone hoping for a trip to Miami in December. You can look to see if that is something that happens. What else? Those are really some of my favorite matchups in terms of trip combos that are out there. There's a bunch of different things. I've looked up a lot of weird stuff, but those are kind of my favorites. That'll be in the mock schedule if you want to go look there for more. So
I've not created a mock schedule. I'm going off book here if it's all right with you. I do have a thought on the Bengals two thoughts on the Bengals roster move that has taken place during the course of this show. The Bengals signed college free agent Shaquan Loyal. He's a safety, and waived cornerback Micah Abraham. I have two thoughts on this. First,
how you possibly have two thoughts on this?
Every year there's a positional quirk on the roster that is just like strange. Like 2 years ago, you remember me talking about how the Bengals had too many tight ends. Last year at this point, they had like 12 defensive tackles. Well, the Bengals have like 7 slot corners right now. So of course, you know, Mike Abraham, he fought to stick in the league. they had some expendable slot corners there. So they tap into that too much slot corner depth to cut to open up the roster spot for the safety. Second, this is the line of demarcation. The Bengals not cutting Germaine Pratt has officially cost a guy his spot on the 90-man roster. And that guy, Mike Abraham, is a guy who they invested a practice squad spot in for more than half of last season.
And you end up with a team that had the safety situation. They had a safety that like was originally going to show up, didn't show up. They had to bring in.
I think that might be this guy. I'm not sure.
Yeah, like that. He wasn't there on Friday, so it's just like you get these weird situations that happen when you get into the UDFA list. But yeah, what was your favorite moment of the Mike Abraham era?
He was a small guy. I mean, he was a feisty player. I would have liked to have seen him in training camp. But that leaves.
Would you?
That leaves Dax Hill, DJ Turner, Josh Newton, Jalen Davis, Nate Brooks, and Braylon Lux as your slot corner options for the Bengals in 2025. And Dejon Anthony, who can play some.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see if they can find somebody. All right. As they shift to more 4-3. And so, all right. Let's talk for a little bit about some rookie projections. I'll start. You know what? I'll do as we do in the Monday tape show. Where'd you start, Charlie?
I mean, I started with number one, and I did try to have some more fun with these. I can give you serious pressure projections if you want. But Shemar Stewart. So before I get to Shemar Stewart, I'm going to ask you a question. Paul, when do you think was the first time I tweeted about something Myles Murphy did during the 2023 season, his rookie year? What date was that?
His rookie year? November 16th.
November 26th. That's pretty good, Paul.
Ooh,
so
not bad.
My goal expectation for Shemar Stewart is to be tweeting about him as soon as October, about something that he did, about a splash play, about him entering a rotation. That's what the bar is. I think there's going to be a lot of one-to-one comparisons between Stewart's rookie year and Murphy's rookie year. What this season to me about Stewart's going to be is the flashes that lead to tweets. And I mean, not that that's an official stat, but that's what this season's going to be, especially when you take into the fact that there is a bar at that position. Like, they can give snaps to just Josiah Cam Sample. Like, that's fine. But if Stewart clears that bar with splash moments that lead to buzz, I feel like that's mostly what I'm looking for from a projection standpoint. So my projection will be, I will be tweeting about Shemar Stewart multiple points in October.
We're going to call those FPTs, flashes prompting tweets, is what we're going to go with on that. So we're going to be tracking Shemar Stewart FPTs. I really like that. I think I'm with you. And I think it's really important to temper expectations with him, and because it's hard to, though, even though fans know he's a project and they know that there was production and he's raw and this, they need him to be something quicker. And there's going to probably be frustration with his first month or two. And it's hard to know. I mean, sometimes you feel that way, and then it's midway through August and coaches can't stop talking about Amarius Mims, right? And like that happened last year because there was a thought, okay, Trent Brown's here. He's going to hold it down while Mims learns he doesn't have a lot of experience. But a guy can come in and just kind of wow everybody from the jump and make them more comfortable with someone, even if they lack experience or we're supposed to be raw coming. They can change that. And it can feel a lot like Mims's year. If they could get anything that kind of replicates that type of impact, they want to get, I think, didn't you say that Shemar Stewart was kind of the Amarius Mims of this draft class, right? It's the same idea of somebody who maybe is a little more raw, but man, you're just betting on that. If they could get that kind of a year, the way if you felt today about this, next year, the way that they feel about Amarius Mims today, that's exactly what they would take, and became Mims became the one consistent part of that offensive line by the end of the year. So if they could get something resembling that arc of, okay, you feel great about Shemar Stewart by the end of the year and maybe sooner, I think that's a huge win when we really talk about what you want it to look like.
I'm going through this roster right now, and I'd like to go through some old guys who previously were on the roster. But like Myles Murphy had a bad rookie training camp, and of course, Miles Murphy's a conversation for another day, but like Miles Murphy had a bad rookie training camp. Chris Jenkins and McKinley Jackson, before they got hurt, they weren't really doing a lot. We weren't talking about Joseph Osai before that game in Tampa Bay, and then it shut down after that. Cedric Johnson, I don't remember anything he did in training camp last year. So for whatever reason, it's been a slower acclimation process for it. Now, maybe that's because they haven't drafted impact enough defensive linemen yet. But overall, it is a theme. Maybe even it should be an expectation that Stewart isn't going to come in and wow from a training camp perspective. And when you have the bar of Osai and Sample at that position, that makes him a Stewart in a spot where he is competing for almost an active roster spot in week 1, which is something Murphy was doing. I believe then someone got hurt. Maybe I forget what it was, but there was a minor injury to one of the backups that led to Murphy being active week 1 right away. So that's kind of where it was Osai who got hurt in 2023. That's kind of the shuffle that you'll see Stewart in that he'll have to ascend his way out of.
Yeah. And I think, if you read the tea leaves on what Al Golden has said and what Zach Taylor has said, and they've sort of insinuated, is these guys need to play more. They need to play early. I think, and you hear a lot about creating a sub package to ease them in. I think some kind of whether it's a third down or an early down or a kick inside or whatever that 4-eye, whatever it is, some kind of assuming health and you don't need more from him, some kind of an early sub package that they feel like he can really sink his teeth into, be a part of, and be a weapon as part of, is probably where this starts, and then see where it needs to grow to from there, get his feet wet and get him comfortable and get some tape that you can start teaching off of a little bit more. I'm talking about the regular season. Training camp is go, play a lot, right? Get out there and put a bunch on tape. I think they need to see him in camp and in preseason games. But I think when it comes to the season, look for that, like the creation of whatever that sub package is going to be for Shemar Stewart. Will be an interesting one to keep an eye on as they go through. All right, let's flip to the day 2 picks. What's your day 2 thoughts?
Again, I tried to have some fun with these projections. So instead of just doing the simple missed tackle rate or stuff like that, I want to see the compare. And I didn't look up these numbers, but for Demetrius Knight, what the season's about for me is his tackles against wide receivers, because Germaine Pratt actually wasn't that bad in coverage. He just couldn't tackle receivers last year. So it's his tackles against wide receivers for Demetrius Knight. It's his tackles on screens, and it's his tackles for loss in the backfield. So if those outweigh what the Bengals got from Germaine Pratt last year, and I don't even have the tool to pull that number specifically. I'm sure it's on True Media or somewhere like that. But tackles against receivers in space, tackles in the backfield, tackles on screens. If those 3 numbers are more consistent and are greater than what the Bengals got from Germaine Pratt last season, the rookie year, no matter what else Demetrius Knight does, will be an unbelievable success.
When I would talk to Steve Palazzolo and Sam Monson over at PFF, I'd always tell them, like, one of my favorite things in your raw data to go through with linebackers is stops versus missed tackles. Stops, they have solo tackles for an offensive failure as a stat. And I love that stat, which, Zach Bond was a maniac last year. He had 79 of them. And the second most was Zaire Franklin with 63. Like, that's impact plays, really. Then they always just joke, well, that ratio, I guess they have every stat in the book, but the ratio doesn't exist of stops to missed tackles, because I feel like it's like for every error, I need more. I can put up with some error if I know I have the activity. I said, can I get that stat named after me? Like, they have every stat. Can I get it? Can we call it the PDJ ratio or something like that? Like, I would love to have a stat named after me, but I think that's important here. And that's what I want to see from Demetrius Knight. I want to see a very high, unnamed stat, the PDJ stat. That's fine. Give me stops over to missed tackles is what I want to see. I want to see more activity, and I want to see less missed tackles. And I that's not a secret. That's not something that isn't already known, but it just wasn't good enough last year. Like, if we talk about Germaine Pratt, yeah, 53 stops is great, but when you have it against 19 missed tackles, it hurts a lot more, And so I just think whatever we're talking about, I want to see playmaking, but I want to see far fewer of those missed tackles. And I would probably put missed tackles higher up on that ratio priority list.
It's funny because the PDJ stat you're describing, that is what outs above average is in baseball. So it's funny that we have that stat in baseball, but we don't from a defensive perspective in football. The one difference between the Demetrius Knight and the Germaine Pratt comparison, Al Golden spoke at length about this on draft night, was the lack of backfield production from Demetrius Knight, specifically against the run, the lack of upside and volatility as a run blitzer that you saw from him. Say what you want about Germaine Pratt's season last year. Germaine Pratt did that. He showed up in the backfield. His biggest strength when he played his best game, specifically in 2022. But then you saw more of it kind of in those last 5 games of 2024, or some of it in those last 5 games. Pratt's ability to anticipate the snap, to read and react. I always say he was the first one to move when he was playing at his best. And his ability to knife through a block or two and to end up in the backfield almost instantaneously. Like, that was, to me, the Germaine Pratt play. When you look back at his Bengals legacy, that is the Germaine Pratt play. Look at the Steelers game on the road in 2022 was the perfect example of that. I believe he had a couple of those against the Bills as well in the playoffs. That's not who Demetrius Knight was in college. That's what they have to teach him to do. Al Golden talked again at length about that on draft night. When you look at the importance of explosive plays on defense, Demetrius kind of has to learn that. And that's what the challenge with him is going to be during this offseason.
All right, Dylan Fairchild in round 3. I think there's a lot of high expectations for what he should be versus very little history of rookie guards coming in and playing at a very high level. It happens sometimes, but to me, like, I think you really kind of almost have to view him through the Bengals fans aren't going to like the Cordell Volson lens. Like, you're looking for something consistent and average, okay? And kind of early in Cordell's career, you felt like you were seeing that maybe start to develop and bubble up, and it hasn't to this point. But to think that Dylan Fairchild is going to come in and be like a top half of the league guard is just unrealistic. And so really, can he be better than Cody Ford is probably the conversation that you're looking at here. It's why Cody Ford's here. He is the floor. He is the, can you be better than Cody Ford?
Cody floor.
What the draft pick was meant to, the Cody floor. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So you're looking at the Cody floor. Are you above the Cody floor? And I think if he is, that's a success in year 1. That's a success if you can get to that level. I would say the odds are against that. At least when you look historically of just how rookie guards that have had to play a lot have played in the NFL as rookie. It's not something that particularly goes well.
We're on the exact same page. The number I wrote down for Dylan Fairchild was 17 starts. I almost don't care how those 17 starts go. If he's viable enough to be in the lineup for 17 starts, that's a massive success. I will take Cordell Volson's rookie season from Dylan Fairchild in 2025. I'll take it because that'd be an upgrade over what the Bengals had at guard last year. That would provide some sort of consistency. With Dylan Fairchild, when you hear people in the building talk about him after the draft, it's been obviously we've talked about all the highs, but when it's what does he got to work on, it's the consistency, the development, the technique. He's not a guy who comes in as a finished product in pass protection, and that's okay because he does have some more upside there. What was it? The strongest hands that Scott Peters has ever seen. But while all of that can play up down the road, what you need from him now are games. Because where things get really scary is either an injury happens, which does happen to rookies going through their wear and tear of their first camp season. See Marius Mims, specifically the pec in training camp, and then you see rookies get benched because they aren't ready for the consistency of the game yet. If Fairchild can do that, that means we're not talking about left guard a lot, and that means maybe the biggest concern about this Bengals offense is off the plate of our discussion.
One name that I go back to, and somebody who I, having covered them for their entire career, and since he kind of got to talk to about this at length, was Clint Bowling. And now both Georgia, both mid-round picks, Clint Bowling. I mean, if they got Clint Bowling's career out of Dylan Fairchild, they would just see people jumping around and clicking their heels together around Paycor Stadium. But Clint talked a lot about how hard he played. He had to start 3 games his rookie year in 2011. They had Nate Livings and Bobby Williams at that time playing guard, and an injury happened or whatever it was. It was pretty early. in his rookie year, and he was and he just talked about the overwhelming nature of being thrown in there at that point, and how you just he was looked back almost in an embarrassed nature and how he played, because until you really learn how to deal with that physicality, you get thrown in there and it doesn't always go well, and it didn't always go well for him, that's for sure. And he eventually settled in and became a consistent part of great teams. But the best line the Bengals have had in the modern era, really, until you go all the way back to the 80s, really. And so if they can, you just got to know that Dylan Fairchild's going to feel overwhelmed. He's going to feel overwhelmed at points if he even can win the job. And so it's kind of part of what goes back to the man. Would anybody really have a problem if they went out and signed one of these free agent guards to add to this battle at this point? Because I just feel like, while I appreciate the confidence of drafting Dylan Fairchild and having his back immediately and saying it's his job to win, right? Go get it, buddy. Like, I appreciate that. The reality of a third round left guard starting for you is a scary proposition. And I just, if they can avoid feeling overwhelmed from the interior longer, it's probably better for everybody. He has a lot to prove to actually go out there and do that.
Something you mentioned Cody Ford being you mentioned Cody Ford being the floor to finish that sentence. I still am taking Cody Ford over Lucas Patrick in this right guard competition if I'm picking straws right now.
Yeah. If they had Lucas Patrick out there, for whatever this is worth, in their first practices at right guard, I think they like the idea. Everybody's got, like you said, everybody's got to make it healthy, and they will have competition, and they're all the same to me. Like Patrick, Ford, even if you're throwing Fairchild, like we're saying, where is he going to land? They all feel the same. Okay, all right, maybe something good can happen here. And so where it lands, I don't know. It's probably who actually is more of attrition. Whoever actually makes it healthy to opening day is probably who your starters. And throw Volson in there.
They do have depth. Their depth is better. Their depth is better.
They have a bunch of okay in the background, which is more than they could have previously. And Jackson Kirkland, he's here. He's here. So we'll see. We'll see how that all works. Let's get into some of these, a few of the day threes and the undrafted guys. Charlie, who do you got some big thoughts on here for day three?
I've got something on all of them. Barrett Carter, he'll get some snaps probably as they use some more 4-3 looks. He'll still probably have to beat out Warren Burks for that. But what Barrett Carter is right now is Logan Wilson's backup. And what I want to see is above average defensive performances in, let's say, the game or two that Logan misses. Obviously, you don't want to miss in any games. But what was the Bengals' worst game last year on defense? The Steelers game. I think it was zero coincidence that ADG was right in the middle of that, making a lot of mistakes. That was his moment. I still held ADG stock, and after that game, that ship had sailed. If Barrett Carter ends up getting that, let's call it a Joe Bocci moment against, I guess it would even better comparison, a Marcus Bailey against the Chiefs moment. Marcus Bailey steps in for an injured Germaine Pratt, and it's like, you know what, the kid did okay. If Logan Wilson's ever out and Barrett Carter has to step in, I'd like for the Bengals defense to allow fewer points than the opposing offense averages.
I would recommend to people, if you didn't listen, go back and listen to my conversation with David Hale last week, who covers the ACC for ESPN. He talked about Barrett Carter and what happened to him at Clemson. He's like, after his first couple of years there, people viewed him as a first-round draft pick. That was his arc. And then once they had the coordinator changed, a guy who's since been fired, it seemed like his impact wasn't the same, and he didn't seem like the same type of player. Well, I mean, he was a 5-star top recruit. He had all the athleticism. He showed that he could do it early in his time at Clemson. And then when things changed around him, he suddenly didn't look like the same level of prospect. You can really hear the Bengals in the background knowing this, talking to Dabo or their contacts, which they obviously have at Clemson as they continue to draft Tigers, and hear them saying, we think the DC might have messed up a really, really good player. That's why he got fired. And that being why they buy Barrett Carter. And so now, what does that mean here? I don't know. But in double up drafts, we see the second guy be better a lot. And so could by the end of the year, he even displace somebody? Could, one injury, is he immediately the guy? I'm curious about Barrett Carter because I want to see if Al Golden can get the early Barrett Carter to show up here in Cincinnati, and then they feel like they got a steal. And is he at that point challenging not just Oren Burks, but challenging Demetrius Knight, even depending on what's else happening there?
Maybe what he has to develop more into to become that is I call it the oomph. I mean, that's not an original term, but the oomph is the word I use from the linebacker position, which is really important kind of for that, add in the versatility that Al keeps talking about to maybe drop down and set the edge from the linebacker position is something that appealed to them about Demetrius Knight. With Barrett Carter, it was the more I looked into it, the more it was so obvious why the Bengals drafted him. The intangibles, plus I believe it was 24 passes defended. He's got that vertical range. He's got that comfort, fluidity, and speed in space, plus the ability to keep an eye on quarterbacks and maybe chase them down a bit. So, there's a lot to work with there. How we see that play out onto the field in 2025 will probably be very situationally, but I could definitely see a scenario where he's a long-term starter for the Bengals.
Yeah, plenty of time to figure that out. Jalen Rivers, I've
got something.
Hey, okay.
You know what a successful season is for Jalen Rivers?
What?
For him to be the sixth offensive lineman in the 6 offensive line packages, and for the Bengals to have an above average short yardage efficiency rating when the Bengals run in those 6 line packages. Because they haven't been good at that. They haven't been powerful enough up front when they try to bring in that extra big guy and set the edge or set the tone on the line of scrimmage. Can Jalen Rivers do that? Let's see. And if he can, short yardage run game, that's something the Bengals have needed to be better at for years.
Jalen Rivers needs to be 74, has reported eligible.
Yeah.
Needs to be you need a lot of that. He needs to be an expert, and people know him that way. Prove he got in and got some value. I just, we do this with all draft picks, but just remember, Jalen Rivers was picked 153rd overall. So again, I think people think, oh, there he is. This is the answer. You don't want me going down the list of 5th round tackles that have been selected in the draft over the years.
The Matt Lee buzz is still buzzing, by the way.
Yeah, well, I'm sure
still
it is.
Matt Lee buzz.
There's still Matt Lee buzz.
That's your point. No, that's your point.
Yes, and that's fine. If he has a preseason that elicits buzz like Matt Lee did last year, for whatever that's worth, then that's a win. That's a win when you consider what you're dealing with. And it doesn't mean he's not going to be a good player. It's just you're picked where you're picked because of what you are right now. And so I for his sake, I hope it turns out well. But he's one of those that exactly you need to have him find some sort of a role and have a preseason that they feel like they can build on. August will be his most important month. And or at least if this season goes well for the Bengals, because if they're forced into a position where he's out there having to protect in December or in January, you're a little uneasy.
I was making the opposite point about Matt Lee, by the way. He is a 7th round pick that I feel like it's talked about like he was a 3rd round pick. There's my Matt Lee take.
Yeah, well, he is. But, at least he had a good preseason. He had a game that people will be like, Matt Lee did play good. If you got that, then you won as a 7th round pick, right? Now he doesn't the amount of talk that he gets where it's like move Karras to guard. I mean, I don't buy any of that. But what Tahj Brooks? What do we think?
Tahj Brooks, above average kick returner, would be a massive success. I feel like that's the need that we haven't talked enough about with the Bengals. Jermaine Burton's the best kick returner. Does Isaiah Williams make this team? Samaje Perine can do it, but obviously if he's the singles hitter of running backs, he's the bunter of kick returners. So the Bengals need some more ability, athleticism there, and if Tahj Brooks can do that, his rookie season is a massive success.
Yeah. I don't, as much as I like the Tahj Brooks pick, and I think he's fun idea as the next Chase Brown or whatever his role develops into. The fact that Samaje and Zach Moss are both here makes it a lot harder to see that if something happened to Chase Brown, that even then that Tahj Brooks is in that mix. So you're right. I think he would have to have his impact come in kick returns. And again, preseason, a flashy preseason could really help him. And you can't always say that for everybody. But with running back in particular, if he goes out there and really looks dynamic, maybe that changes the conversation a little bit. But yeah, they do need. I mean, they need juice at kick returner. Who knows? I mean, is Charlie Jones going to be around? Is he going to be healthy? Is he going to be able to? Is he the kick returner that you want? Is Jermaine Burton going to be around? Is he going to be engaged? Can you count on him? I mean, the types of people that Isaiah Williams was returning kicks. Like there's a clear spot. There's a clear spot for him to make his first bit of impact with this team, and it doesn't have to be at running back to open eyes. UDFAs that we like. I want to start with one. I'll have a story out on him this week. I spent some time catching up with, and I love this. It's crazy, right? So Eric Gregory is a defensive tackle out of Arkansas, and he played at Arkansas against Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase's LSU team in 2019.
Yeah.
He's going to be 25. He spent 6 years in Fayetteville. And I was like, are you the mayor now? Like how many degrees did you get? And he's like, yeah, I got my degree actually pretty early. So I was just kind of taking the holding on classes. And I was like, been there. Okay. But I mean, it's remarkable. I mean, he's literally a dad. He's got a second kid on the way. He's 25. He's incredibly mature. He got his NIL money. Like, it's the new path. But I think they need they have such a massive hole at defensive tackle. That's what drew him here. He was somebody they had their eye on. He seems like a fit. He played in the SEC for 6 years. I mean, he's not, some 20-year-old high upside. Maybe you could end up finding something. He's a guy that you're like, yeah, I could see him being a rotational player in the NFL as a rookie because of he did it in the SEC. And he did it there for multiple years, and he's an older, more mature guy. And so I think potential for him to come in and be the Muma Jong Meta, if you will, of this year's team. I think, and that's what Muma was. He was a guy, he came in, he was mature, he was experienced, and he made an impact quickly. I think you could see that from Eric Gregory this year, and I think he is the most likely of the UDFAs to make this team for that fact.
I agree. I still think if I were doing a 53-man projection, I would have waiver claim from Jacksonville TBD as your defensive tackle. I mean, it feels like every year, right? The Bengals at least put in a claim on a defensive tackle on the waiver market. Gregory definitely has more of the run nose profile, which is what they've leaned toward. When it comes down to, do you take the run guy or the pass guy? They've taken the run guy. Obviously Cross has had a lot of discussion around him. Kind of a sleeper who, to be honest, I don't know much about. But offensive tackle Caleb Etienne, when you look at the size, when you look at how much offensive tackle depth is a position of weakness, and the fact that he'll be competing with Jackson Kirkland, Devin Cochran, and Andrew Coker for kind of that role as the tackle behind Jalen Rivers on the organizational depth chart. Even if that's not a 53-man role, like we saw with Devin Cochran, like these guys rise up when injuries happen. Like, I'm intrigued by the tools and traits of Etienne. And then Wagner as well would be another who probably deserves mention.
Etienne it was funny watching him out there. He's wearing 77. And I honestly, like, for a second thought he's kind of shaped like Trent Brown a little bit. And that he has kind of longer, skinnier legs with a lot of his weight in his upper half. I was like, man, the only thing missing is the questionable tattoo down the left arm. But I was like, he looks like him a little bit, but he looks like so many of these Bengals tackles that they bring in. It's the size looks the same, but it was funny to me watching him go around. I was like, man, we got some serious Trent Brown vibes happening with Etienne as he runs around out there. But we'll see. I think, it's how many spots are really open. And I guess you never know. I mean, a couple of guys can come in and and Zach Taylor was running down the list of impact UDFAs that they have brought in recent years that have played, that have made the team, and that helps sell. It helps sell guys on coming here. And I think there's, I mean, I was telling Gregory, I was like, well, they're not just all talk on UDFAs that come in and play right away. They started at receiver in Zach Taylor's very first game, an undrafted free agent rookie named Damon Willis. And that was because they felt like he came in and proved himself, and they were trying to show they'll play whoever comes in and try. That's their theory. And however you got here. And Gregory is better off coming here than getting drafted by some team that was just taking him to take him, in my opinion. Because to be able to choose your spot and find your spot where you can come make an impact, I think is better off for him. But that's for all these guys. I mean, you never really know. They can come out of nowhere.
One more fun one, tight end Cole Taylor, who I assumed would just be like a pure blocking guy. The Bengals, and again, I haven't even seen these players yet, so it's hard to put too much stock into any of these evaluations from what we see. But what the Bengals were stressing, Butch had the story, Butch Hobson on Bengals.com, kind of how the Bengals view them, and what they talked about was his ability as a receiver. So if that's a massive big tight end who can catch some passes, sure, that guy can beat out Tanner McLaughlin for a roster spot. So I'll be kind of intrigued to see him on the field. But yes, most of these slots have been accounted for. Specifically, when you look at how they used free agency, not to get the top of the roster, but like they added a bunch of veterans. Your Joe Giles Harris's, your Marco Wilsons. Bring back Isaiah Thomas. Tanner Hudson returns. Like they added a lot of veterans to kind of soak up those back roster spots.
We shall see how it all plays out, and it will all play out. We'll talk more about this and so much more. We'll be back in there. Joe Burrow's talking tomorrow, Charlie. Joe Burrow press conference on Tuesday. So let the streams flow all across the internet as everyone will want to watch and see what Joe has to say. The first time that we have talked to him since before all the signings and everything. And since the Met Gala that everyone has made such a big deal about and everything else. So we'll hear from that. And then we'll have the full schedule on Wednesday. So Wednesday night, make sure you come on into the live stream. Coup-Day nights will be kicking off at 9:00. All things schedule reaction. And I know you're excited. You just want to get into it. So hop on into the YouTube page. If you're not subscribed, you don't get the alerts. Hit the bell, subscribe, all of that stuff so that when we do go live, you know it and you can come check it out. And of course, that'll be up in the feed later for all of you that are the dog walking, car driving listener types that prefer that. So should be fun. Charlie, you're going to be there, right?
Well, I'd love to. The Reds are playing. So
oh, that's right. The Reds are playing. So we'll have to get your thoughts later.
I could text in. I could leave a comment. Reds are at home.
Text.
It might be. It might rain though. It might rain. So if it's a rain delay, I can hop in.
If it rains, you can hop in. At the very least, you can come in the comments and tell people to be nice. That'd be great.
Yeah, that's right.
I like that. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Appreciate it. And we will talk to you next time. Have a good one.